dat to the Who Dat Nation, and welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and no, you are not high. Well, you could be, but that doesn't change the fact that football is back. We have arrived to the 2024-25 NFL football season, and I couldn't be more happy. I am so happy that football is back. You have no idea. This has been a depressing off season as far as football fandom is concerned, because we got left with a bad taste in our mouth. Let's be upfront and honest here. It was not the season that we were looking for last year. Saints facing the easiest schedule in the NFL last season. The Saints facing zero quarterbacks of any merit all season long. Basically backups and undrafted free agents of quarterbacks last season. With all that paved out for the New Orleans Saints, we still managed to miss the playoffs yet again. And so many questions going into this offseason, leading up into this upcoming season. What's next? What changes can be made? What can we do? I mean, because we are spiraling out of control here. I mean, everything is there for you. You got well, I was about to say top tier quarterback, but that's a bald-faced lie. You have a decent quarterback in Derek Carr. You have some top-notch receivers with Chris Olave and Shadid and A.T. Perry, I feel. And the defense is a pretty good defense. Solid. Not upper tier, but solid. Everything is laid out for you. What's the problem? Well, then you got to start looking on the sideline. Is it the coach? Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the defensive coordinator? Is it the front office? What's going on? Well, we got rid of our offensive coordinator and Pete Carmichael, thank God. He reunited with his husband, with his former coach, Sean Payton in Denver. And so all is well and good with them. But we needed somebody to come in with something different. I mean, anything different than this cookie cutter offense that was ran for the past 2 seasons. Anything. And the Saints brought in Clint Kubiak as the New Orleans Saints' new offensive coordinator. Now, I don't know what is Clint Kubiak's system. I don't know what it is. Is it a hybrid of not a hybrid, that's the wrong word. Is it a variation of Kyle Shanahan's system that he runs over there in San Francisco? Because this is where Clint Kubiak was. Now, he hasn't been there for 4 or 5 years. I think last year was his only year over there, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like he is an astute student of the Shanahan game plan. Now, there are ties there. His father was a successful head coach in the NFL for many a years, as well as an offensive coordinator as well. And so there is some pedigree there. But as far as knowing what is to be expected of this offense, I have no clue. And it's cool, as long as it's different from what we had. Well, we're finally going to get to see it on display. Now, not in its totality. Of course, I don't think we're going to get a full playbook this upcoming Saturday, August 10th at 7 p.m. from Arizona when the Saints take on the Cardinals. But we're going to get something. We're going to get our first taste of what to expect from this offense. And I'm so excited to see that. There's so much to be excited for going into this game. And I know it's the first preseason game. The game doesn't count. It doesn't matter in the record books and on the standings. I know. And normally in past football watching history for me, I didn't care about the preseason. I never really cared. But as I gotten older, one, I just want to see some form of football. So it doesn't matter if it's preseason or XFL or what's the new one now? UFL, arena football. I don't care. I just want to see football, even though those different leagues didn't quite scratch the itch. I want to see NFL football, more accurately, the Saints. And so the other point is you want to see who is a good addition to this team. What's out of these new crop of players that the Saints have brought in either via the draft or free agency, how can they contribute to this team? And these position battles within the game is not so much the opponent you're playing, it's the teammate you're playing against, really, because everybody's fighting for a spot. There's only 53 spots on the team, and you can have upward of 75 players at the start of camp, if not higher than that, but you have to wither it down to 53 before the actual regular season begins. And so everybody's fighting for that final spot in certain areas. And those are the exciting battles to watch in a preseason game. It's not starters, because very rare do you get starters. You probably get starters in the first series or the first quarter if you're lucky. But this is mostly with the backups and the number threes and so on and so forth to test them out. And quite honestly, I'm in the camp. I want to see starters play. They don't have to play the whole game. I'm not expecting to see the whole game, but I want to see starters play, and more than just one series. And this is the reason why I didn't have this feeling until last year. I went to that game, the first preseason game, when the Saints took on I think it was the Chiefs. Yeah, it was the Chiefs in the dome. That first drive by the offense, Derek Carr led them down the field. I mean, straight down the field. I don't think they had a third down. I mean, that offense looked crisp. They looked unstoppable. I'm like, oh, man, we're about to put it on the NFL this season. And you didn't see the starters no more throughout the preseason until the first game of the regular season. And night and day, at no point during the regular season, did I recognize that team from what I saw in the first game of the preseason against the Chiefs. Mind you, injuries came into play, different styles of defense came into play. I get all that. But that offense didn't look close to what I saw in that preseason game. And they didn't play no more. I mean, it was 3 weeks in between. You have to get some reps in against another team. Practicing against teammates doesn't sharpen you, man. That's not how iron is sharpened. And so you got to go up against different styles, different players, hungrier players who they're fighting for a roster spot as well on other teams and stuff like that. So it sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. And I believe that starters should be playing throughout the preseason. All this trying to keep you healthy stuff, I understand that as well. It's just going to take one big injury in the preseason to kill preseason. But at the same time, how many times have we seen in week one players get hurt and is out for the season? In week one, it's going to happen. Injuries, unfortunately, are going to happen. This is a physical sport. There's no way around it. So that's what it is. Before we jump into the preview, and this isn't going to be the typical preview of a Saints game because it's a preseason game. It's a preseason game, and it's not about wins and losses here. Who cares? Do I want them to win? Of course. I want Saints to win every single game that they ever play. I don't care if it's a scrimmage game. at the local playground around the corner. I just want the Saints to win, but this doesn't matter because it's just a preseason game. But let's go through the depth chart. Let's see who is on the Saints roster going into this game. And this is probably the last time you're going to see the roster at this size. They're going to start making their cuts this week, especially after the game. Doubt if they get it to 53 after this game, but they're going to start withering it down after this game, after they get a visual of where they at and who is progressing, who is digressing, and so on and so forth. Let's start with wide receiver, and the Saints have a lot of wide receivers on the roster. Chris Olave, A.T. Perry, Bud Means, Kevin Austin Jr., Marquez Callaway is back, Rashid Shaheed, Cedric Wilson Jr., the St. Brown gentleman whose first name I cannot pronounce, Stanley Morgan Jr., Mason Tifton, and Samuel Nakua. Now, the standout in camp, I haven't seen it, but all reports that I've read, Mason Tifton is pushing for that number 3. He is from Yale. He's a speedster, can really stretch the field, and they're real high on him. Everybody's talking real high on him as if he's going to make the team. I'm keeping an eye out for him this Saturday. Keeping an eye out for Samson Nakua. He is the brother of Puka Nakua, I think that's his name, who plays for the Lions, and the Rams, and he took the world by storm last season. I remember when the Rams played the Saints last year on Thursday Night Football, and he destroyed our defense. And he did it to everybody's defense, so I wasn't too mad by that. But I want to see how he works out, as well as A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry has been kind of on the doghouse this training camp. I haven't heard any good reports about A.T. Perry, and I'm real high on A.T. Perry. I liked him last season. He's a big target. He reminds you, he will remind you size-wise of a Marcus Colston. I'm not saying he's Marcus Colston quality, but he reminds you size-wise, body build size. It's that type of receiver, and he has a little speed with him. Marcus Colston was never a speedster, but he'll catch a wall if you throw it at him. The dude was amazing. Miss Marcus Colston. But those are a few people I'm keeping an eye on. Moving over to our offensive line, which is also, I guess you could probably say, is our biggest Achilles heel going into this season. We haven't gotten that offensive line right in years. It hasn't been right in years. And my cousin, we were talking yesterday about the Saints and the upcoming season, and we got on the offensive line. We went down the list, man, and we got to the offensive line, and he brought something to my attention that I knew, but I didn't know. You ever had talk to somebody and you know it like in the back of your head type situation, and when somebody else says it, it kind of just brings it out even more, like a revelation. But you knew this, but you didn't realize it. He said this to me. That really blew my mind. The Saints have nothing but first round picks on that offensive line. And I had to think about, wait, you right, cuz. You right. For the past 3 to 4 years, for certain, the Saints have picked in the first round and picked an offensive line. And they haven't really worked out. You can go all the way back to Andrews. Pete, first round, didn't really work out. Last season when he was with the team before he left was probably his best season. And they moved him to left tackle, and he looked amazing in that position, but they moved on from him. They picked Cesar Ruiz in the first round. They picked Eric McCoy in the first round. They picked Trevor Penning in the first round. They picked just this past season, or just this past draft. What's his name? Talaiense Fungua. They picked him in the first round. There's nothing but first round picks on that offensive line. And you got to sit back and wonder, why is this offensive line the worst unit on the team? It's mind boggling. But along with Talaiense on that left tackle position, you have Landon Young, and you also have Jesse Davis, who are battling for that spot. But they say Talaiense is above everybody, leaps and bounds at that at camp, I should say. At left guard, you have Lucas Patrick, Nick Sirianni, and Sean Lemieux. I don't know much about any of those, but it is what it is. At center, you have Eric McCoy, Lucas Patrick, and Sincere Haynesworth. At right guard, you have Cesar Ruiz, Kyle Hagel, and Tremaine Archerum. At right tackle, Trevor Penning. Yes, they moved him over to right tackle, trying to fit this round peg into this square hole. Along with him, you have, oh Lord, here we go. Look, charge it to my head, not my heart. When I read these names, I'm sorry, but Ole say Mika Oda, don't know. I'll find out after the game when they announce their names at the game. But he's battling out at right tackle, as well as Joseph Azram battling it out at that position. At tight end, you have Foster Monroe, Michael Jacobson, Darlin Halka, Kevin Rader. I was about to say Reed, but Kevin Rader and Mason Fairchild. At quarterback, you have Derek Carr, Jake Hader, Spencer Rattler, and Taysom Hill. At running back, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Kendra Miller, Jordan Mills, James Robertson, and Jacob Kebadi. Swinging back to the quarterback position, we all know Derek Carr is the starter. There's no debating that. But it's for that number 2. Who's going to be the backup? And that's between Jake Hader and Spencer Rattler. From what I'm reading, all that I'm hearing and reading, Spencer Rattler is putting on a clinic in camp. They said in any other situation, he would probably be challenging for that starting spot. But being as though it's the Saints, that'll never happen. But Jake Hader, he missed some time in camp because he was dealing with a rare form of skin cancer. It wasn't life-threatening or anything like that, but he went and had it removed, and everything should be fine with him, thank God. But him missing time really helped Spencer Rattler, and he's kind of moved up the ladder there. So I've been wanting to see him. I watched him in college, and I was intrigued by him. I was actually shocked that the Saints got him where they got him in the draft, and shocked that the Saints were really kind of going all in on him. And I say all in loosely, like they're actually gonna make him the starter or anything. But no, like paving the way for him to be the heir apparent when Derek Carr decides to drive off. So we'll see how this all plays out. But I love this, and I want Spencer Rattler. It could be Jake Hader, because I like him too. I liked him last offseason or preseason, and some of those games that he was in. Dude looks good, you know. Are they good enough to push Derek Carr? Maybe not, but I would love to see them kind of just flick that flame, you know what I'm saying? To let them know that we're here, tapping him on the shoulder, letting them know that we're standing behind, we're right here, ready and willing to take your job. And I think a lot of quarterbacks need that. They really do need that. God bless him. I miss him every time the Saints take the field, but Drew Brees had that issue. as great as Drew Brees, as long as he was a New Orleans Saint, never had anybody on that sideline that would challenge him for that job. And he got comfortable and he got complacent. And I think that affected him as a player. And that goes for anybody on any job. Think about you on your job. If there's nobody there that, like, if you work in an office somewhere and you know all the information about your department, nobody else know. They can only go straight to you. Your job is pretty secure because they need you. That job, your job needs you. There's no other person they can turn to but you. But let them hire somebody that knows just as much, or God forbid, even more than you. Then you kind of shaking like booty meat. Now you're on your P's and Q's, like, oh my God, man, such and such can take my job. And it pushes you to be a better employee where you are. And it's the same thing here on the football field. Derek Carr needs somebody to push him. He got comfortable last season. I think he felt like this is his team, and he should. He's the starting quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but there was nobody to challenge him. Who? Jameis Winston? They made it clear Jameis Winston wasn't going to play. Forget taking his job. Coming in on mop-up duty even. They made it clear that was not going to happen. And so Derek Carr was in the good. Let's swing over to defense. On defense, this is a pretty solid bunch here. Defense is pretty consistent, throughout the last few years. This is another thing me and my cuz was talking about. And I promise you, one day I'm going to get him on the show. Because I know whenever I do the Dome Patrol, I always bring them up. And one day I'm going to get them on the show. But anywho's, the defense is the most consistent part of this team because they have been together. There's been the same system. And this is prior to when Dennis Allen became the head coach. Dennis Allen was the DC. And so this is the same system for the past 10 years or however long he's been here. And so there's no real big change here, not a real big turnover here, but the Saints do have some new pieces to play with, some new toys to play with, I should say, on this team that can benefit the New Orleans Saints in a major way. Starting with that defensive line, that's on this defense, the one glaring problem with this team was their defensive line. Every other stage on the defense was solid. Your linebackers were pretty solid. Your secondary was solid. So the Achilles heel was your defensive line, because for some strange reason, the defensive line could not generate pressure, could not get to the quarterback, couldn't really do much against the run. They used to be real good against the run in the past, but for the past last 2 seasons, hasn't quite got there. And so the Saints did make some changes. They did bring in some new pieces here that can help in our pass rush and run stopping ability. And I thank God for it, because, that can do nothing but help the secondary. It all goes hand in hand. It's like that movie 300, with the Spartans. And Leonidas tells one of the, I think the deformed one, that the Spartans are as strong as their weakest link. And so everybody has to be strong. Everybody has to be able to hold up their shield at a certain height. Otherwise, if one fails, they all fail. And it's the same thing with this defense. If the defensive line can't generate pressure, you're asking the secondary to cover for 5 to 6 seconds back there, and that's virtually impossible. I don't care if Deion Sanders, Darrelle Reeves are back there covering. They cannot do it for that long. You know what I'm saying? So you need to be able to get a quarterback off their spot. But anywho's, let's get into our defensive players, starting with our right defensive end. And this has been a big bugaboo for the Saints. Saints have been trying to find an answer to this problem for years. Just like they were trying on offensive line, they were trying on the defensive line. And this is another thing. Yeah, I'm still ranting. This is another thing that you want to get mad at the Saints about, but you really can't, because they are truly trying. They have drafted players year after year. They just haven't hit on those draft picks. They tried it with the Peyton Turner. They tried it with Marcus Davenport. They've tried it with oh God, who's the other one they drafted? Isaac Forsky. They just can't get a defensive end to save their life. The only one of merit was Cam Jordan, and he's about 150 years old right about now in football years. And so it's a little tough. But our right defensive end right now, as it stands, Carl Granderson, who had a phenomenal year last year. He had a real good year last year. Chase Young, who we brought in, a former first-round pick, number 2 overall pick to be exact. They brought him in. I thought was a really good move. And also Isaac Forsky and Nico Lados. This is somewhat of a good problem to have, because all 4 of these players, well, 3 out of the 4, because Isaac Forsky hasn't shown me nothing. I seen him at Notre Dame. He was a beast at Notre Dame, and all of a sudden he couldn't get on the field last year when we drafted him. But 3 out of these 4 players are pretty good. I have seen greatness out of them. So it's going to be a real battle at that position. Our defensive end, we have Kalen Saunders, Christian Boyle, who we just drafted, Jeff Hufflin, and Kyle Braw, as well as Nathan Shepard, Brian Brissy, and Kende Vickers. And Brian Brissy, another first round draft pick, who he panned out. I like Brian Brissy. He is really, really good. I love his energy. He's perfect at that position. And he can only get better. So that's encouraging as well. Nathan Shepard did pretty good last season as well, but it's good to have that 1-2 rotation there, as well as Kalen Saunders. And we'll see how this Christian Boyd fares out for the Who Dat Nation. I don't know much about him, so this is going to be my first exposure to him. Our left defensive end, of course, we have Cam Jordan, Peyton Turner, and Trajan Jeffcoat. So we not so heavy on the left side as we are on the right, but Peyton Turner, this is it for him. This is pretty much make or break for that young man this season. He's going to have to step up. And Peyton Turner, when he's healthy, I've seen flashes of a good player. The problem is I've seen him in street clothes more than I've seen him in a Saints uniform since he's been drafted. That's the issue. I know injuries are a part of the game. You can't control them. But my goodness, this dude, and the injuries are just, they come fast and furious for this young man. I feel bad for him at times. But we'll see how this all pans out as we move forward. At linebacker, we have the newly, well, not newly, but the young man who just got a 3-year extension from the New Orleans Saints. That is Pete Warner at the will linebacker spot, as well as Kaliki Hudson and Isaac Stallbird. At middle linebacker, we have the old general himself, Demario Davis, also D'Amico Jackson, and Morty Rice. Strong side linebacker, you have Willie Gay and Jalen Ford. In the secondary, the New Orleans Saints cornerbacks, we have Paulson Adebo, Alante Taylor, Shamir John Charles, Rico Payton, Marshawn Lattimore, Kool-Aid McKinsley, Hugo Amade, Rejon Wright, and Mac McClain. This cornerback room is packed, but well, let me go through the safeties and then we'll go back. We'll do the secondary as a whole. Let's go through safeties here. Our strong safety, we have Jordan Howden, Jonathan Abrams, JT Gray, Mallet Bradford, also Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, Will Harris, Roderick Teamer, and Lawrence Johnson. Now, this secondary, this is a packed secondary, and the Saints brought in for a workout the other day. What's his name? Justin Simmons, who was he's a Pro Bowler. He was on, I think he was on the Super Bowl winning team with the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken. But in the event, he is a decent safety. I don't know where, I don't know why, not where, but I don't know why we keep bringing in these safeties. I don't get it. I mean, I understand if he's good, and he may fit this system great, but we have other issues here. We have other places that needs to be addressed, and they're not addressing them. We always address in the secondary, and all I can think of is the fact that this is Dennis Allen's bread and butter. That's where he cut his teeth at, being a secondaries coach. That when he first got into coaching, that's what he was under Greg Williams here in New Orleans when we won the Super Bowl. He was the secondaries coach, so he knows secondaries and he loves safeties, and the scheme he runs works. He's a really good defensive coordinator. As much as I rag on Dennis Allen, he is a really good defensive coach. I cannot take that away from him, and especially in the secondary. The dude knows the secondary. He don't know much of anything else, but he knows that. But the interesting part of this section of the team is the cornerbacks to me, because you have Marshawn Lattimore. Now, everybody has heard the rumblings all off season. They're going to trade him. They're going to get rid of him. The Saints drafted Kool-Aid McKinsley. So that's the writing on the wall and all this here. Why would they do that? Why? I mean, who came up with this? Because that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. The dude is the best cornerback the New Orleans Saints have ever had. You can etch it in stone. You can put it on you can put it on a billboard, put it on a Goodyear blimp. It is fact. He is the greatest New Orleans Saint cornerback in history. Is he the greatest cornerback to ever play in the NFL? No, not saying that. But he is a awesome cornerback. He is one of the best in the league currently. Look at his numbers. He is truly one of the best. And for people to want to turncoat on him, to throw him away, with the bathwater, I found very, very disrespectful. Very. Bobby Hebert being number one. If you listen to Bobby Hebert's radio show, I think Bobby Hebert losing his mind sometimes, because some of the stuff that come out of his mouth is so ridiculous. It's really embarrassing, because I used to watch him, and cheer for him, and for the stuff that he says, it's like, my God, this dude is an idiot. But it's all good. I know he's good. He knows he's good. Like when he came out and said, like, I don't know what people saying. I never said none of this stuff and all this here. It's like, shut up. He was basically telling him to shut up. But that's not the part that that's kind of curious to me. The curious part is who's on the other side. Paulson Adebo has shown that, how good of a corner he can be, as well as Alontae Taylor. They're really holding Alontae Taylor back, in my opinion, by putting him in the nickel package, because he's not a nickel corner. He's number one and number two receiver type corner. But he got better as the year went on last year as the nickel corner, but that's not his natural position. You drafted Kool-Aid McKinsley, who is not a carbon copy of Marshawn Lattimore, but has potential to be much better than Marshawn Lattimore for certain. But we'll have to wait and see how it turns out. But who's battling for that number 2 position between Adebo, Taylor, and McKinsley? And so that's what I want to see in this, not only this game coming up, but in the preseason and training camp moving forward. Now, I don't know who's starting and who's sitting for this game, how long starters will play, if they play in this game. It's easy to get excited about the prospect of seeing the stars, like seeing Kyler Murray out there with his brand new weapon, Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, the son of Marvin Harrison from the Colts, who was the 4th overall pick in this past draft. But we should remember that it's just the preseason. It's just the preseason. Both teams may not play their starters for no more than just one single possession, if at all, especially in this first week. But it would be nice to see. It'd be nice to see if the Saints get some experience in this new, rebuilt, new and improved offense from Clint Kubiak right out of the gate. That would be nice to see. And Derek Carr, who struggled last year in Pete Carmichael's offense, which is mind-boggling how you struggled in a bargain basement Dollar General brand offense. I don't know, but he played limited snaps last season, as I said before, last preseason. One drive, and it was that opening drive in the first preseason game. I don't know. There's always the risk of injury. I get it, but that's true in practice. I think it's more likely to get hurt in practice than in the actual game. I'm just saying. There's no, unless you wrap them up in bubble wrap, you can get hurt anytime. You can get hurt getting out the bed. Just the other day, I got out the bed, as if y'all wanted to know this, but I got out of the bed and kind of like twisted my knee a little bit, and I was limping for a day and a half from that. Now, granted, I'm becoming a decrepit old man, but I'm just saying, you get hurt anywhere. And so trying to protect the player from injury in this matter I don't think it's very smart. I really don't. If anything, you're hurting players that way, ever since they done away with 2-a-days and hitting in camps and stuff like that, players been getting hurt a lot because their body's not conditioned to that physical nature like it used to be. But what I know, I just sit behind a microphone. They're actually on the field getting hit. And so if they were to walk up to me right now and say, hey, put this on, and stand in front of him right there and let him run at you full speed and hit you, my tune may change. But this is exciting. I'm excited that the Saints are back. I just wanted to do this little show to kick it off officially. The Dome Patrol is back. The Saints are back. And we are about to experience 4 months of joy, 4 months of pain, 4 months of laughter, 4 months of crying. We're about to go through every range of emotion that you can think of on Sunday afternoons and a couple of Thursdays and Mondays as well with this team. And I'm going to be here every step of the way for the celebrations and the epic breakdowns. We will be here, unfortunately, for the breakdowns as well. But I'm excited for this Saturday. I will come back and recap that game, even though I'm more than certain there will be nothing to talk about coming out of that game as far as strategy and what new. But in the event that something new and exciting comes out of that game, or God forbid, knock on wood, a major injury happens, we definitely going to talk about that. I did want to kind of touch in on the Pete Warner extension and Alvin Kamara not getting an extension as of yet. Is there going to be some animosity there? I did want to, but the show went a little longer than I expected. But we will touch in on it before the season pops off, probably after the recap of Saturday night's game. But I would love to know, are you excited? Are you as happy as I am that the season has kicked off yet again? Or are you waiting for the regular season, which I respect that. I get it, but I just want to see some football. I want to see it so bad. I'm watching other teams' preseason games. I love me some football, but I love me some Saints even more. But I want to know, are you ready? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look up the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Thank everyone for all of the support that we have been receiving on all platforms, but especially on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. Subscribe and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we preview the first preseason game of this season as our New Orleans Saints take on their Arizona Cardinals Week 1 matchup. Want you all to enjoy the game. I'll speak to you after, but until then, you can find me by hearing me scream, "Who that?"